G'day guys and gal. All melee weapons, from the humble cheese grater all the way to the double-edged spinning katana, are dope. Life would be so much better if wars were fought with only melee rather than all this pussy-ass drone strike shit we've got going on. Imagine the medieval era of warfare, except everyone's wearing a 4K resolution GoPro. Unlimited content, baby. Out of all the melee weapons, none are as iconic as the sword. Sure, a mace is better against armor and a spear is better against cavalry, but there's a reason why King Arthur pulled a sword from stone. It just would have been weird if he had to pull out a flail or something instead. Swords are a symbol of influence, respect, and lineage. They take skill to wield effectively, while shit like a battle axe is just more so a huge swing and hope for the best. Or at least that's how I perceive it. I could be totally wrong. After all, I've never killed anyone in melee combat with a battle axe before. If you're wondering how I'm making this video despite currently running with the balls and getting retarded on sangria in Europe, well, that's because I busted my balls making content before I left so you guys would have something to enjoy while I was away. I'll be back around the 18th of July and normal scheduling will continue from there. Today we'll go over 5 of the most powerful and impactful swords of the setting of 40k. We'll also discuss how they were made and who currently wields them. You wouldn't think swords could have much of an impact in a sci-fi setting where people can nuke you from space, but boy oh boy would you be very, very wrong. Let's get into it. Let's kick things off with the most obvious one, the Emperor's Flaming Sword, aka the Sword of the Emperor. Look, just because it has a bit of a no-shit Sherlock name doesn't mean it can't absolutely ruin your day. Unlike a lot of overpowered Warhammer swords, which were made by, ancient Xenos and then rediscovered in the modern setting, the Emperor's sword was forged by the big man himself during the dawn of the Imperium. The Emperor put his blood, sweat, tears, and maybe his cum into its creation, making it more of an extension of himself with its own small degree of awareness rather than just a sharp bit of metal. He did this because he can do whatever the fuck he wants, but the real explanation was that he was able to combine his mastery of the warp with his uncanny ability to create awesome stuff in low quantities. You gotta remember that despite the Emperor needing help to create the Astartes, the Primarchs, and the Imperial warships, he was still able to create the Custodes, the perfect superhumans, by himself. So he would have been more than capable to create a one-off mastercraft super sword. The sword itself is legendary. I'm sure it's sharp, but cutting through stuff isn't really its strong point. The psychic flame turns the weapon into a melee explosive. If you smack an orc with the Emperor's flaming sword, it's more likely to explode or turn to ash than get cleanly cut in half. And I'm okay with that. The greatest power of the sword is its ability to permanently kill demons, which is a big deal. See, Chaos treats Warhammer like a game, because their demons can't actually die. If you kill a demon, it just gets banished to hell for a couple thousand years and then reappears later on. However, the Emperor's sword could give it true death, and as a demon is an extension of their god, the Emperor's sword can literally kill parts of the Chaos gods. There are very, very few things in Warhammer that can permanently kill a demon, hence why demons were so shit scared of the Emperor. It wasn't a game anymore when he was around, it was a fight for survival. After the Emperor became a lithium battery, the sword stayed by his side, soaking up his overwhelming godlike psychic powers for 10,000 years and becoming even stronger. There is actually some conflicting canon about this. Some say Belsarius Cawl kept the sword in safekeeping on Mars and gave it to Guilliman when he was revived. Others say Guilliman found the sword on his way back to Terra, but most people say that Guilliman took the sword from his father when he spoke to him. I believe it's that one. Regardless, the sword chose Guilliman and ignites with the Emperor's flame whenever he wields it. It also allows him to permakill demons as well. G-Man says that whenever he holds it, he feels his father's presence, so there's likely a shard of the Emperor's soul within it. Either way, it's a beast of a sword. On the flip side, we have the Silver Blade of Slaanesh, aka the Layer Blade. This sword was forged by the Layer, a race of humanoid sea snakes who discovered the joys of drug-fueled orgies and dedicated their society towards the worship of Slaanesh. This exquisite sword was then possessed by a greater demon of Slaanesh, who patiently waited for some dipshit to pick it up. Well, that dipshit happened to be Fulgrim, who slowly but surely was corrupted by the blade. The corruption of the Layer Blade was the sole reason why Fulgrim fell to chaos. No Layer Blade equals loyalist Fulgrim, so that's quite a huge impact on the setting right there. It did, however, give him a shitload of power, allowing him to physically beat an Avatar of Cain to death, as well as beat Ferris twice in combat. The first time was when Fulgrim told Ferris that suckling on demonic tits was a vibe, so Ferris attacked him. During the fight, Ferris blew up Fulgrim's other sword, the one Ferris had made for him, which knocked Ferris out. Fulgrim didn't get knocked out, however, and I attribute that to the power-up from the Layer Blade. The second fight was during the Istvan drop site massacre, where Ferris and Fulgrim dueled. Fulgrim tapped into the power of the demon and actually grew physically stronger than Ferris. This is nuts, as Ferris was considered to be one of the strongest Primarchs, up there with Vulcan. So Fulgrim being this slender, agile swordsmaster, but also strong as fuck, was too much for Ferris, who got decapitated. If Fulgrim didn't have the Layer Blade, then Ferris would have most likely have won that duel. The demon in the blade would then possess Fulgrim, leaving the blade mostly drained of its original power. Demon-possessed Fulgrim would present the now empty blade to Lucius the Eternal, who still wields it to this day. It remains a very potent power weapon, but it's no longer a demon weapon, so it doesn't have all the, side effects. Humanity aren't the only ones that get to enjoy sharp stabby sticks. The Eldar have their own fair share of powerful swords. I was tossing up between the crone swords of Marag High or the Death Sword. We will go with the crone swords, but I'll quickly tell you about the honourable mention, which is the Death Sword. When Slaanesh was corrupting the Eldar race and they all began their galactic gangbang, Slaanesh could manifest some demons to help further her agenda. To this end, she sent a herald disguised as an Eldar whose sole job was to make the Eldar a bunch of margaritas laced with Viagra to help push them closer to Slaanesh. A few uncorrupted Eldar, the priests of Asuryan, saw through this bullshit and decided to act. In secret, they forged a replica of Kane's sword, using an echo of the galaxy's death. Very edgy stuff. It was called the Death Sword and it hit like a nuke. Even getting nicked with the blade was fatal, and there was no armor that could even slow it down. They first used it on Slaanesh's herald, who was wounded and had to retreat. They then used it on the still gestating Slaanesh herself, which while it did hurt her, wasn't enough to kill her, and the priests got cum blasted to death for their troubles. The sword has recently been recovered by the Eldar, and we haven't heard much about it since. However, I do choose the crone swords as the better weapons, as the Death Sword couldn't even kill a herald of Slaanesh despite its description, whereas the crone swords can one-shot raid bosses and bring about Slaanesh's destruction. I say swords because there is more than one, 5 in fact, but they are of somewhat similar power. It was said that the goddess Morai Heg cut off her hand, and Vol, the Eldar smithing god, forged 5 swords using her finger bones. That's pretty cool. One sword is wielded by Yvraine, and its special ability turns people to ash. The second is wielded by the Viscerarch, which absorbs the life essence for those it kills. The largest and most powerful blade is wielded by the Yinkani, and the fourth is the Spear of Twilight, which Prince Uriel used to save his craft world by one-shotting a hive tyrant with it. The last sword is hidden in the Palace of Slaanesh, as if all 5 swords are brought together, fucking Michael Morbius appears and he morbs Slaanesh. In all seriousness, it's not entirely clear what happens, if they merge into a super sword or, they get the Infinity Gauntlet. But either way, the Eldar god of death Yened will awake and probably destroy Slaanesh, hence why Slaanesh doesn't want the Eldar to get the 5th sword. I would fucking froth it if the Ynnari got one more book, which was like a hectic high story about them having to infiltrate the Palace of Slaanesh and retrieve the sword. That would be dope as hell, and it would give GW a chance to redeem themselves after all the bullshit trash lore we Eldar players have had to endure in recent times. The greatest of all demon swords is Drakien. The unique thing about Drakien is that whilst all other demon weapons are swords that have been infused with the soul of a demon, Drakien was turned into a sword, meaning the entire sword is 100% demon. Drakien used to be a free and very special demon, being created upon mankind's first murder. As such, the demon had a special connection with the Emperor, and was one of the few things that could wound or even kill the Big E. During the war in the Webway, Drakien attacked the Emperor and impaled him, genuinely wounding him. In return, the Emperor forced Drakien to morph into a sword, trapped within itself. He then stabbed the sword into a trusted custody and told the custody to run into the Webway and become lost to time and space. The custody did so, with Drakien being pissed because it knew it would take thousands of years to whittle down the custody's will and escape its body. We don't know when or how this happened, but it did happen, as Abaddon found Drakien and wields it as his main weapon in the current setting. In terms of power, this thing hits fucking hard, able to cleanly slice through the gauntlets of Ultramar, which were previously thought to be indestructible. It's probably one of the only swords that could successfully parry the Emperor's flaming sword, although I don't know how Drakien would feel about getting smacked against the Emperor's flame. Would probably hurt like a bitch. The final, obscenely powerful and very impactful sword of today is the Anathema, a chaos sword forged by Xenos. The funny thing is that the Xenos themselves who created the sword weren't chaos followers. They actually had joined an alliance that was anti-chaos. However, they just made chaos artifacts for the lols, I guess. This particular sword was powered by Nurgle and was stolen from the Xenos by Erebus. The super dickhead then gave the sword to a mortal human commander on an Imperial world. The world was corrupted by Nurgle as a result of this, with the mortal becoming a bloated plague zombie. When Horus went to go purge the infestation, he fought the corrupted commander and was actually mortally wounded by the blade. How the fuck does one of the best Primarch duelists, or any Primarch for that matter, suffer a mortal wound by a fat-ass plague zombie? Well, Anathema has special properties. If you told the blade someone's name, not only would it become lethally poisonous to them, but it would actively seek to stab them, either making its way to them or luring them to it. So when Horus fought the plague zombie, he was really just fighting the Anathema. This mortal wound is what turned Horus to chaos and made the setting what it is today. So in terms of impact, no sword gets close to matching the Anathema. I don't think that's how you pronounce it, fuck. Erebus would go on to break the sword down into multiple daggers, which, while potent, were not as powerful as the Anatheme. Anatheme. Fuck. Guilliman was stabbed with one of the blades but resisted its effects, so either Horus is a huge bitch or the daggers are a fraction of the original sword's power. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be. Only $1 per month gives you access to a boatload of not family friendly stuff. I have to word it differently because YouTube is starting to catch on. Goodbye monetization. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the real subscribe button for more sharp content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.